If you watch the video versions of these, I'm sorry about the weird angles. I really need to figure out a setup. Also, another thing, if you're watching the video version, this is how big I like my sweatshirts. Like, I have to fold them. But I really just love it because it feels like I'm wearing a blanket. That was really off topic. So, today, we're going to be talking about social media. This is something I believe has pros and cons. Definitely more cons than pros. As you'll notice, as you listen to this episode, I can just think of more cons when it comes to social media. And that's kind of the base of what we're talking about today. Today, I'm just going to be talking about the pros and cons of social media and more specifically how I think it affects people. And I'll add some of my personal experiences with social media in there. So first, we're going to be talking about the few pros of social media. I feel like it would be wrong to deny that social media doesn't have its benefits because it does. I mean, like I promote? Is that the right word? Yeah, I like promote this podcast using social media, so it can be helpful in that way. I don't know, are podcasts? Okay, this might sound stupid, but do podcasts, they're not social media, are they? They're more like radio. Like they more fall into like a radio category, I feel like. I don't know. So I like that I can talk about my podcast on social media, and just like interact with people on there and get ideas from you guys. That's really helpful. I love how I can connect with people that I wouldn't have otherwise. Another pro I have is like the creative aspect of social media. I like the like sharing music and stuff and just like being creative. I don't know. Like I kind of just use it for like music stuff. Other people are like very artsy about it. So I like that. Yeah, and we can just like share things that we made or just share things that we're proud of. But something that I've noticed, I don't know why I keep squinting. I'm like, you can see, let's stop that. Is everything, like every pro with social media can be flipped into a con. So like for example, social media is a great way to meet new people, but can also be a very unsafe way to meet new people. And like another one is social media gives us access to so much information, but a lot of that information can be false. And this just leads me into my many cons of social media. Like I said earlier, I just feel like at least I can think of so many more cons. I think it's mostly because I've realized the effect that social media has had on my generation. I'm gonna sound like a grandma in this episode, but it's so true. I feel like we were just born into this kind of technology world. And like none of us know a world without like Instagram. So my first con, or like my main concern, not my main concern, but one of the concerns is just how much information we're exposed to by having social media and just technology in general. I mean, think about it now. Like, I think of like the 8-year-olds that have smartphones, and I'm like, that is insane. Like, they have too much information for their own good, unless there's like restrictions on their phone or something, but I feel like there's always a way to work around those. Like, I'll be in like Target and I see like 8-year-olds with like the latest iPhone, and I'm like, do you know what going outside is like? It just like baffles me. I feel like as like time is going on, the age that kids are getting smartphones is getting younger and younger, and it's just scary to think about because there's so much like information out there that like a kid that age is not ready for. And this might be an unpopular opinion, and maybe it's me just saying this because of my generation and me seeing the effects of phones and social media. Like, me thinking far ahead, I don't think my kids will have phones until they're like youngest is like 14. Like I don't know. It's just so scary to think about all the little kids that are getting iPhones and they're like literally just entered the world. I think like if my kid starts playing sports, obviously I'm not just going to send them off with like no way to contact me if they need help. Maybe they'll get like a flip phone or something. Like they'll probably hate me, but I just don't like I want them to be safe, but I also don't want them to be an 8-year-old running around with a smartphone. I just feel like social media is feeding us so much information that we just don't know what to do with it all. And I just don't think that our brains are like meant to be given that much information at a time. Like you think of like TikTok, and it's just like crazy how 1 minute you could be watching a video about hair, the next is like something like devastating. My next con of social media is the impact it has on our attention span. Like I realized this just recently, but it's just crazy to think about. I was recently talking to a mental health counselor about the effects of social media and what it's had on my generation in particular. And we just don't know how to just sit and do nothing, because if we're not doing anything, we're on our phones. And I'm not trying to like bash on my generation, but I think it mostly affects mine because we were born into social media. So, and I think the reason that we've all like a lot of us have become impatient is because of our phones. Like I know so many people my age that like cannot watch movies. And the reason for this is because we're watching Instagram Reels or we're watching TikTok and we're used to getting something new every 5 seconds. Like 1 minute you could be watching a video about like hair and then the next is just something like completely different. We're constantly being stimulated by social media that we don't know what to do without that stimulation. Another con of social media is how it affects us socially. I feel like I've heard of this one probably the most. Like this is the most popular take on social media that I've heard, especially from like adults. But the one thing that I don't like is when like older people will just like make fun of like younger generations, like they don't know like how to socialize, but then they'll also be on their phone like at dinner or something. So I don't know, that's just one thing that bugs me, because it's not like I'm not trying to sound like I've already said this, but I'm not trying to sound like I'm like bashing my generation, because it affects everyone. But yeah, I feel like so many like young people, and this isn't just young people, but people that use social media frequently lack social skills, is because we kind of use it as like a blanket, if that makes sense. Like say you're at a party or something and you're feeling awkward or you don't know like what to do, like you're kind of just sitting there. What are you doing? You're on your phone. It's so true. And like so many people do this. It's not just younger people. I'm so guilty of this. Like being someone that already struggles socially at times, I will find myself using my phone as like a safety net. And I'm also not saying people don't struggle socially for other reasons, but I think that this can be one of the reasons why someone might struggle. But I do think that social media has such a huge impact on how we interact with people. I mean, we're so used to talking to someone on a screen, then we see them face to face, and obviously it's two completely different things, so we don't know what to do. I think this is part of the reason why older generations don't struggle as much, because they didn't have TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat to talk to people. They did it all in person. My next con I have with social media is how it can affect your mental health. Before I completely get into this, I want to read something I found from an article called "The Link Between Excessive Social Media Use and Psychiatric Disorders." I can't say that word, psychiatric. Okay, so the article says more than 80% of the total participants reported frequent exposure to social networks. The results revealed that 48.3% of participants were found to have depression, 22.6% suffered from anxiety, and 19.4% had both. I feel like this is a pretty significant amount that it would be ridiculous to ignore this and say that social media has no effect on your mental health. But something I do hate is when a kid is like struggling and it might not even be from their phone and their parents like, it's from your phone. Like, that's kind of like, okay, that's not, just no. So just because it happens in a lot of situations doesn't mean that that's all of what might be wrong with someone's mental health. But personally, I can say that social media has impacted my mental health. I've talked to my therapist as well as other therapists who have said that this is one of the reasons, but not the only reason, so many people struggle mentally today is because of social media. Because like I said earlier, there's other things that can play into this, but social media still has had a huge impact. And I can say from personal experiences, it absolutely can affect our emotions and how we feel. Being on TikTok and rotting in bed all day doesn't make you feel great mentally and just about yourself in general. One, because you're not being productive, and two, because you're being exposed to so many things at once. Some of the things that you might be watching might be positive, but other things might affect you negatively and cause you to compare yourself to others, that sort of thing. I'm a big fan of the Sturdy Yellow Triplets. I mentioned them so much in this podcast. Like, it's actually, I don't know. It's kind of an issue, but not really, because I love them. But I was listening to their podcast, and they were talking about, like, if you have the choice between watching TikTok in bed, like before you go to sleep, or watching a YouTube video, pick the YouTube video, because like longer content is much better for you, because like I've said a million times, you're scrolling through 10 million things, and it just can be a lot sometimes. And my last con of social media I'm going to be talking about today is the obvious cyberbullying issues. I feel like this ties into the mental health. Most of the stuff I see online of people saying hurtful things is about people in the public eye. And I'm not saying that's all of it. I'm just saying that that's what I see most of the time. Like, the comment sections on celebrities' Instagram pages are crazy. And I feel like we've all just been like desensitized by it because of how much it happens. Like, someone will be telling a celebrity or whoever is in the public eye like something horrible, and like I don't see a lot of people defending that person while this person's just being like absolutely torn apart. And I think it's just ironic to see the stuff people say online, because they would probably never say the stuff that they're saying that's absolutely horrible to someone's face. I just think that social media gives someone more confidence to say horrible things. And what I noticed is someone will comment something terrible on someone's page, and then that person will respond. They'll be like, oh, like I like never thought you were gonna see it. And that's just like, I don't know, that's crazy to me. Like, don't comment it if you don't want them to see it, you know? I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. But I feel like obviously that's the reason why they're doing it, is because they're like, oh, this person will never respond. So that's all I have for today's episode. This was basically just me ranting about how bad social media is. I do think that there are some pros. Like I've said a million times, it's just harder for me to come up with them, because I don't know, I just think the world would be a lot simpler if there was no Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat or whatever. It just would. That's just a fact. But I'm also a teenage girl, so I'm not gonna act like I don't ever spend hours on end on my phone, because I do, and that would be really hypocritical of me to say you shouldn't be doing that. Like, I don't know. So hopefully I wasn't hypocritical in this. I was just trying to state the cons. Not that I don't contribute to the cons, but just putting it out there. Okay. Be safe. Thank you for listening. And remember that not even half of the stuff that you see on social media is true. So yeah. Okay, bye.